Thank you, Toastmaster of the Day, past District Governor Lillian Cook. Helen joined Toastmasters on Valentine's Day 1972, 4 months before her 50th birthday. She's often credited with being the first female Toastmaster. Helen was one of the first female members in any Washington, D.C. area club. The year 1972 is critical to what I just said about women being members in Toastmasters. From 1924, when the organization started, until that year, Toastmasters was for men only. I talked several times with the late past international president Bob Blakely about what it took to officially allow women to join Toastmasters. It has been my honor to celebrate Helen Burkett's legacy as one of the first female members in District 36. Back to you, Toastmaster of the Day.
Thank you, Lillian. Shortly after I joined Toastmasters, the Guts Club, in 2004, I met Helen Burkett. She was introduced to me as the first woman in Toastmasters. The person said a role model. I asked Helen, what do you do to be a role model for so many? Helen said to me, you can't be a role model for something that you can't see. So I try to make myself visible at every Toastmasters meeting. And she attended many Toastmasters events. With that very first encounter, we became friends, very dear friends. Helen, we can no longer see you, but we know that you are reunited with Ted. And we want you to know that in Toastmasters, you are forever visible in our hearts, in our minds, and in our lives. I turn control back to you, Lillian, or to Nelson.
There was never a dull moment with Helen. I've known her for 26 years. I met her in 1994. I was in the process of looking for another club, and I was a guest at Springfield Toastmasters. So I was there as a guest. And everyone was friendly, but the person who stood out and at the forefront was Helen Burkett. She was the vice president of membership. And she was like a used car salesman. Yes, she was telling me why I should join Springfield. Yes, I finally joined Springfield and been a member for 26 years. After being a member for several years, Helen came up to me and says, Nelson, it is time for you to get your DTM. I said, no, I don't want to. And she says, why? I said, because it's too much work. And she says, Nelson, by you getting your DTM, you learn more about Toastmasters. And she was right, because I expanded my horizon outside the club. And I have to thank Helen for that. She was the mentor and pushed me as a used car salesman to get my DTM.
Betty, are you ready to tell us about your memories of Helen?
I am, Lillian, thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. Helen Burkett will forever be a wonderful, fond memory for myself and for District 29. She was an unforgettable supporter of everything that is Toastmasters. I could not be in a room with Helen without her acknowledging me and providing me with an impromptu evaluation of my actions and speech. She always had a smile on her face, an encouraging word, praise for the well done, and recommendations on how to improve. After all, she was a Toastmaster. She always reminded us to share our extra copies of the Toastmaster magazine, and she always let us know if she didn't have enough copies. If she knew you enjoyed receiving a note, she willingly shared a handwritten note with you, and it will be hard for me to buy stamps in the future without wondering if I should pick up a book of stamps for Helen. When District 29 is back to events in person, it will be hard to know that my favorite cheerleader will not be at that contest or TLI. I still have the many aids that she shared with me, and I know I will never be able to recycle them or put them in file 13. They are a constant reminder of the wonderful cheerleader that Helen was.
This poem will be read by past District 29 Governor, Distinguished Toastmaster Monifa Hamilton. Monifa will be followed by Distinguished Toastmaster Richard Rankin of the Helen Burkett Club. Monifa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lillian. The poem is entitled Helen by Jill Pollack. Helen is our favorite Toastmaster. She started this club. We couldn't do better. We love and adore Helen Burkett. We're forever in her debt. Helen's pushing 100. We know what this means. We have innumerable examples of what we've seen. As novice speakers, we all began. Now Helen's Toastmasters has us as fans. When we sample the benefits of speaking, gathering avid listeners is what we're seeking. We have our special experiences to share, our skill with words to show we care. Words may not suffice. We will wish to give her a hug. Unfortunately, we're separated by an unforgiving bug. Avoid the risk and throw her a kiss. Our favorite Toastmaster, we do miss. Back to you, Lillian.
As some of you may know, I was Helen's driver to each of the Helen Burkett Toastmaster meetings after her husband, Ted, passed away. Helen and I had a few things in common. We both lived in Falls Church. We were both former joggers, both Toastmasters, and both raised in Pennsylvania. My dad grew up about 30 miles from Nannyglow, which is Helen's hometown. They never met, but both were unpretentious, truthful, enjoyed humor, always helpful, and loved being with people. Helen was totally dedicated to sending handwritten messages on birthday cards to all the club members, thank you cards to guests who visited our club, and personalized cards to our members during the holiday season. Remember, later in her life, arthritis was in her hands as a painful companion. So I finish with this. Helen's memory will always be with us, and her legacy will continue through her wide-ranging Toastmaster family.
Speaking of Helen and children reminded me of when I was District 27 governor and my granddaughter went to all of the events with me. Helen was always speaking to Christina, better known as the District 27 Munchkin at that time. All right, our next person who's going to share memories of Helen is our host, District 27 Director, Distinguished Toastmaster, Naomi Carrington Huffman. Naomi.
Thank you, Lillian. Helen Burkett is the First Lady of at least District 27, and at most, the Eastern Seaboard of the United States. As you've heard today, there have been many versions of her origin story. That just speaks to the fact that she has risen to a folkloric stature. Regardless of which version of her being the first Toastmaster you subscribe to, it doesn't matter, because she is at that level of where we all want to emulate her, be like her, and be more like her. Be motivated by Helen as you work your leadership track programs, whether being a district officer, a district leader, and do it for Helen. We will miss her, but she will always be with us. Thank you, Lillian.
I stand here as a very honored member of and an alumnus of the Helen Burkett Toastmaster Drivers Association. The last 2 or 3 years that I knew Helen, I was her driver to the DTM Masters meetings. And it was really a time I wish I had recorded all the conversations we had in the car. She made everybody feel special, as we've heard from everybody else. In my case, since I was a Navy pilot, she shared with me some of her memories with Ted. And she even gave me some of his books on military aviation for me to have. I mean, that's a very generous soul, and we're going to miss her.
The first thing I noticed about Helen was her huge energy. And it didn't take that long to discover that her energy matched her personality. And that's what I want to celebrate with all of you today. So let's start by remembering the wisdom of Helen Burkett. I could notice where Helen was in the room every time I went to the Springfield Toastmasters. I just had to pause at the entrance of the door and hear her strong, but also gentle voice. Helen shared a lot of stories with me and my son, Norman Campbell, who she loved dearly and never missed one of his birthdays or any of all of us. Here is some of her advice. Stand for what you believe. Respect people and be kind to them, even when you don't agree about what they say. Don't push an opportunity because it's hard. That bump can be a bigger learning for you. And many other advices that she shared with me and my son Norman, who loves her dearly.
Thank you, Lillian. Some of you may not know that Helen had an MBA. She was the child of immigrants, and she obtained an advanced degree in an age where many women never even went to college. And in her professional life, she was a financial officer. I met her through Galloping Governors Toastmasters, this accomplished woman, in 1994. Helen was promoting Toastmasters until the very end. It was such a joy to know her, and she was the highlight of my own 35 years in Toastmasters. Back to you, Lillian.
I'm delighted and fortunate to give a tribute to an incredible woman who we all respected, honored, and who I personally loved, Helen Burkett. I met Helen Burkett at District 27 conference. I was told she was the first woman in Toastmasters. I was so impressed that I wanted a picture with Helen. Many other women did as well. Helen was sitting in the back of the room. I remember that she said with a confident voice, "I gave you all women the power to succeed." This picture shows Helen in support of my division contest in District 36 just before COVID-19. This is the poem that Paul wrote at my request and I read in the beginning. Helen never forgot our birthdays and sent her monthly cards with poems, pictures, and surprises.
The next person who has comments and memories about Helen is Dutch Martin, a past president of the Helen Burkett Toastmasters Club. Dutch.
Very much, Ms. Cook. Fellow Toastmasters, the picture you see behind me is when I placed first in the Area 61 International Speech Contest in the spring of 2017, representing Helen Burkett's club. I made it a point to share it with her, because if it wasn't for her, there's no way in the world I could have become the speaker and, dare I say, leader that I am today. Serving as the president of the club named after a woman who can be described as the standard bearer, communicator extraordinaire, a barrier-shattering leader, a trailblazer, and an all-around salt of the earth human being. Well, for me, that was a greater honor, far greater than winning any contest. It goes without saying that Toastmasters was in Helen's blood. She may no longer be in this physical plane, but to coin a phrase, she now belongs to the ages.
Fellow Toastmasters, I would like to take this time to say a huge thank you to a few people who made this event possible. Number one is the District 27 chaplain, Jennifer Ferguson. Jennifer put this entire event together, and she led a team, a crackpot team of members. I'd like to highlight my area director for Area 53, Sonia Pons, Zoom Master, Zoom Queen, Zoom Extraordinaire, and past District Director Lillian Cook for being the Toastmaster of the day. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to my sister district directors in District 29, Betty Sinclair, and District 36, Bonnie Madak. I would also like to point out that we have here today several former District 27 past governors and directors: Robin Hilton, Hal Jones, Paul White, Lillian Cook, Toastmaster of the Day, and Vince Caldwell. I want to point out the fact that Helen always showed up. She showed up for all her many, many, many clubs. She showed up in person, physically, to club meetings, and then later on in the virtual world, and did her pathways. Today, you guys showed up. Helen showed up. I want you to continue her legacy and promote Toastmasters the way Helen did. Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster of the Day.